And I'm going to put an icebreaker in the chat really quickly to make sure that since we're in nonverbal communication, thank you, good morning. We talk about some things that seem like a given kind of in nonverbal communication, like we've heard in the vernacular before, the concept of body language, which we will title herein in communication kinesics, or we'll talk about, hand movements that are specific parts of kinesics that seem to be aggressive or embracing, or, things that we don't remember learning. And this is what we've talked before about in class, that, no one really probably sat you down and said, don't let anyone zip you up, or don't use this one particular finger. But instead it happened, or you experienced someone else doing it, and then you noticed the reaction from someone else. And you started to incorporate that into your schema, that, oh, that's, an exciting thing to do, or that's not the cool thing to do, so don't do this, or whatever it is. So into the chat, I'm putting something that is a piece of nonverbal communication that is only treated in a very small way in our textbook, which is the concept of color. Alrighty. So think about colors that you wear, colors of things that you purchase. If you have a such thing as a favorite color, or there's a color even that you dislike. Our textbook even treats color as if there's a such thing as powerful colors and weak colors. That, let's say that you want to be like an 80s shoulder pad wearing business lady. You're going to wear like a red blazer to show your strength if you're in this job interview, or if you want the consumers to think that this thing is healthy, then you're going to make the packaging of this product green. Or let's say that we want to talk about something being clean or sterile, then we're going to make it blue in some sort of way. And so those sort of colors get incorporated into our schema. And from a psychological perspective, we associate green with good, go, red with bad, stop. We have colorism amongst people. That is not the cool thing. We have the concept of colors, even of animals that are different. We hear that if you are a cat or a dog, a little cute puppy or a little kitty, that is in one of the animal shelters, that if you are a matte coated black, that it is more difficult for you to be adopted out because you don't photograph as well. And I'm like, dang, so you just can't be black in any species, huh? I mean, there's a lot going on. All right, so think about colors that you like or you dislike. My best friend's favorite color is purple, and she's always like, hey, get me one of these things in purple. I'm like, purple, it's just so, I don't know. It just says, I don't care about what anybody else thinks. Mine is going to be purple. All right. So think about if you got the box of, like, not the dollar store crayons, but like the real box of crayons, like 48 or 64. What are you coloring in? And hey, I mean, no offense to anybody who likes purple. I like purple too, but just be like on my eggplant when I eat it. What is it that you like or you dislike as a color? All right. So anybody have a color that you like or dislike? Unmute it or put it in the chat for us, please. You like pink? All right. I like pink too. Okay, Hope is demonstrating. Or did you just look at the camera and you're like, pink. Yeah, I like pink. Okay, that's it. So you really do like pink? Vera likes pink too? All right. I like pink. Okay, so we got a first contrast here. And I like pink. It's one of my sorority colors. All right, let's see. Light blue. Okay, so sky blue, but dislike yellow. All right, I'm doing both for you today, Ethan. We're having the best of both. I put my pastels on purpose today. So you do like sky blue, but dislike yellow. Is it all yellows, or is it like mustard yellow, or like that kind of like crust yellow? Are you okay with like a sunshiny, like the little sun that you would put in the sky blue picture when you were a kid and draw it? So is it all yellows, or just like certain yellows you dislike? Tony likes light blue with you. Sarah likes maroon. I was maroon for like all of school and high school. I would lips maroon, hair pulled back to, death-defying lengths, and even a little skinny eyebrows with maroon shadow. Don't tell anyone. Ethan says pretty much an all yellow situation. All right, so poor yellows are just out. All right, I like orange. I think that's unique. Okay. That's a unique one. You don't see a lot of people that say that orange is a good one, and I think it's a really citrusy and crisp color, and it shows confidence. I like navy blue as well. All right, so Damien and Ethan are going to have some sort of battle over the honor of yellow, is what I see that's going on here. Okay, so just what I said, Ethan, but in the opposite, Damien. So all yellows are okay, or are you still okay with that like really deep yellow that's almost almost brown. Like, are you okay with that kind of yellow too, or just like bright yellow or light yellow? Are y'all the type of people that if you find, okay, Brianna says pink too and pastel colors? Yeah, so I told y'all I have teenage daughters. The oldest one is trying to introduce me to some sort of concept called a pastel goth person. And that's an aesthetic that she wants for this thing that she's putting together. And I'm like, okay, so I'm picturing goth, which feels like all black to me. And now it's going to be pastel. So I'm trying to make sense of that. She's an artist. All right, I like red. Red's a power color as well. And I say all of these things. I'm like, oh, I like this color and I like that color. And y'all probably like this color and that color. But what do you end up actually with in your closet? Like, I like all these colors theoretically. And it took me like my whole life to find something that had a color on it today. Like, all my stuff was like different shades of black and gray and all sorts of stuff. And this isn't the worst thing in the world when you put on two blacks and they don't match. Just awful. I guess that can happen with red too, or yellows. Alrighty, so when we think about these colors and why we like them, maybe we can trace back on what it is that we had as a positive experience with this color, or even that we could not participate in the color or not. We find out that when we talked about something that moves us throughout chapters, such as ourselves. Remember, you have a quiz today that takes care of chapter 3 and talks about your self concept, your self esteem, your self image. When we talk about the self that you think that you are in your head, one of the lenses or the perceptual sets that helps to guide all new information that comes into you from your schema is built off of the messages, really, the attitudes, beliefs, and values that you hold. And those values and the beliefs that you had are largely socialized into you by your family, your friends, society. So think about the concept of what a color is that is appropriate for people that present and live as boys and males to wear and participate in, and colors that it is supposed to be okay according to society for people that present and live as women and girls to wear. So when I was growing up, blue is a boy's color and pink was a girl's color. And it was almost exactly flipped in the days of the dinosaurs before then. Then you would see lots of boy children in pink and lots of girls in blue, or would be interchangeable entirely. When we think about those sort of concepts, that an entire color can be segregated towards a gender of people, that it's okay if you have this or not, you would think, well, I mean, we just say that's kind of cute. We know it's going to be a girl, so we'll buy a pink blanket for her, not a big deal. I remember throwing a birthday party and we're handing out sunglasses to the little kids. And one of the moms was like, oh no, you can't give my son that pair of sunglasses. And I was like, why not? And it's like, well, it's yellow or it's pink. It was pink. I've told a lie. Oh, I've told a lie. It was lavender. All right, so it was lavender. And she says, no, give him like a more masculine color. And I was like dirt or steel or iron or what? Like, what do you mean lavender? It's a color. And it's like, well, yeah, but give him a masculine color. I'm like, because he's masculine. He's 3. He's out here just, like being a warrior, at 3. So think about how we've limited ourselves or other people or what it is that it's okay, even if we're talking about prints that will communicate something to someone. So is it okay if we wear hearts? Is it okay if we wear florals? Is it okay if we wear stripes? How are we presenting with what we are going to learn is called our artifacts. So the things that we have as religious insignia or colors that we wear, things that we say to the world, I want you to critique me based on what it is that I'm wearing. Well, excuse me, Professor Rayner, I don't dress for anybody else. I just dress for me. And so everybody else can mind their own business about what it is that I have on. But if you could have on anything that you wanted to on the planet when you leave out of the house, would you still be wearing the things that you have to wear to work? Like, some people even have to wear uniforms. Have you ever been like me in the Target with a red polo shirt fighting for your life? It's happened sometimes, okay? It just depends on if you know what is on aisle 13. Somebody will ask you what's going on. Tony's like, speaking of uniforms, get into this, okay? Because this is what I have to do all of the time, is wear a particular color that's supposed to communicate something to others. So when we're talking about nonverbal communication, so we're doing kind of a transition from our icebreaker to actually get into the content. Let me take a break because I'm on cup of coffee number 2, and I know I'm going really quickly. Does anyone have any questions or comments with the colors that you like or that you don't like, or anything you want to talk about before we get back into our conversation on nonverbal communication proper? Anyone need anything at all? All right, so I want you to think about hair color too. Like, what color would you dye it, or what would you do with it, or even people that change their color, like you get tanning or bleaching or doing different stuff. All right, so Tony's like, I'm not ready for this, but Tony, you're here. Okay, so red denotes danger, so we're thinking like poison berries and stay away from these things. All right, so I'm messing with Tony because Tony is wearing scrubs. All right, and so my husband works at a hospital too, and the scrubs that each unit wears will indicate where they're supposed to be, even so which floor they're on, which department that they're in, where they have to go, and what's going on. We even had a conversation the other day that somebody was in the wrong room and they're looking at the security cameras to see what color the scrubs were to see who was in and out of that space at that time. So it's kind of a shell that indicates your participation or your really legitimacy in whatever this space is. Alrighty, so I'm messing with Tony, but I'm always counting on hope in a certain way as well. Thinking that, we're probably long lost cousins in some way. I just recognize the forehead is what it is. And so y'all tell me, outside of including hope or outside of hope, was there a color that for certain items was taboo for you and your culture based on your age or your gender or your personhood? When I was younger, we couldn't wear red nail polish. My culture, that just was something that was not for little girls. And so I don't even remember what the true age is for the transition. Like, I'm trying to think of maybe 13, like 12 or 13, you could put on like kind of a shade of red, but it wasn't going down. Like, you weren't coming out of there with like 1930s glam fingernails like that were that color, or red lipstick the same, that you weren't doing that. And it was supposed to communicate a level of sexualization that other people would project onto you that you may not possess. You're just walking around living your life, you weren't your nails cute, but it was supposed to be in sort of prevention of being sexualized a certain way by the color that you're wearing. So when Tony just said red, kind of has a connotation of danger sometimes, think about red also in being like a red light district, or communicating harlotry, which is a real word, which is crazy, or some sort of socialized gender exploitation. Was there anyone like me that you couldn't wear a certain color? And even if it doesn't have to be like interpersonal in that way, that your family was worried that you were gonna go out and be a lady of the night because you're 13 and wearing red nail polish. But think about wearing a color that's for mourning outside, and that's MOURNING. So something that is in your culture that's for mourning or celebration outside of those spaces, or ways that color is just not supposed to be operated in your family. Anyone have anything like that? Have you ever heard you're not supposed to wear black to a wedding? You've heard that one before? Or I like when they have the all white weddings, and I'm like, now you're asking me for a lot. I look like a wide square and something white. How are you getting married and I have to look like a rectangle for the whole wedding? That's whack. Alrighty, so others, any other colors? Anybody have anything? I think somebody's about to drop some knowledge in the chat, so you tell us about it. But as we move on, and I still do want to hear about that, if there's any sort of restrictions about anything. So think about, for our entire nonverbal conversation, I really want you, even if you don't unmute yourself or put it in the chat, I want you to think about the more, and I already gave like a level, an interpersonal level of my family or my growing up, my orientation said that I wasn't supposed to do my hands this way, or I wasn't supposed to look at people in a certain way. I wasn't supposed to yell, or I wasn't supposed to whisper. I wasn't supposed to do this or do that. Think about sort of regulations, if there are any, around your nonverbal communication, or even sort of those things at work. I had a student tell me in my class, Monday, Wednesday class, that she works at a where do you get your nails and your toes done? Like at a nail shop. I mean, I guess you just call it a nail shop. Okay, I don't know. But I was trying to make it fancy. Like, she works at a house of cosmetology production. Okay, so she works at a nail shop, and they have a restriction on the language that you're even able to speak. Like, you cannot speak her home culture's language in front of the clientele, because for some reason the clientele gets insulted by the hearing of that thing. And they're not supposed to whisper either, that they're supposed to talk at a level that the clients can hear what it is they're saying. I guess it's supposed to be an ordination of transparency. And I was like, that is stressful. It sounds stressful to me. All right, so you don't look people in the eye, especially the elderly ones. All right, and it's kind of opposite. We're going to get to that in oculesics. That is exactly right. So we think about the concept of respect or deference by not looking at someone that is not your peer directly in their eyes. I mean, would hear an adult say, boo, go and look at somebody else, go and do something, stop flying up in my face, so go and do something else. We're not peers, so don't connect with my eyes this way. And then, yes, in Eurocentric westernized culture, you'll see at a job interview, someone will say, that person is shifty. They're not looking me right in my eyes. Well, I'm considering that you are, my superior in this, and I'm trying to show you deference. And that's something that sort of a similarist culture says, even if you grew up completely and totally differently, you need to adjust to that. And it's one of those things that's kind of subjective. So the same person that can use that against you can say, oh, and that person's always like glaring at me right in my face, and it's not really showing that respect. So it's weaponized against you, and it can also be used to help in certain ways. So it's more important that we just know that that's the thing. Tony did drop a jewel and said, there are lots of cultures, especially collectivist cultures, that we show deference or respect to elders or superiors by not connecting eyes directly with them. And people listen all different types of ways anyway. So we just have to at least be aware of sort of the Eurocentric proclivity to look someone right in their eyes at all times. I'm going to share the screen really quick to our handout for chapter 5. And remember, you can always read the chapter, of course, and look at the handout as well. And our last class, and we're just going to recap what we talked about. Really, we started with our definitions of nonverbal, vocalized, and verbal communication, and you should have those things by heart. We want to understand that if something is vocalized in our respiratory system, our salivary glands, our voice box, all that stuff is actually used for something, even if it is not necessarily a word. So things that are vocalizations that don't necessarily contain symbolic utterances that contribute to a word-based language could be something such as someone saying, and that happens so many times in like a face-to-face class. Somebody will say, and I'll say, oh, okay, what's going on? Looks like Bo Queen has a question. What's going on? Oh, nothing. I just had a salad earlier. Just trying to get some things out of here. Oh, okay. Sorry. All right. Sorry about that. So we can have sort of a guttural utterance that we make, or a shh. That's still vocalized communication, even if it's not using a voice that contains tenor in it. It's still passing by your respiratory system. So anything that doesn't contain necessarily a word can even still be called vocalized communication. And then, of course, if you are saying a word and your voice is being used, then that's vocalized if it's actively happening right at that time. It is verbal if it has the potentiality to be enunciated or pronounced down to a pretty short set of symbols or interpretive content. And this can be such as words that say a person's name, or where it says in our handout, Chapter 5, Nonverbal Messages Study Guide. All of that is verbal because it can be pronounced. And really what we're doing with it when we're reading it is having our inner narrator, Morgan Freeman, or whatever the voice in our head is, to enunciate those terms for us in our brains. And that's why it's so difficult. I don't know if it has happened to you before, but when I'm trying to proofread my own work, I will still not catch a typo, or I won't see that I have a duplicated word or something that's missing, because due to what we will learn later on in the semester about uncertainty reduction theory, our brains are so sophisticated that we try to fill gaps in information with known content, and we'll kind of skip over it because we know that that word is supposed to be there. And so we won't notice its absence because we're going pretty quickly through it, or we know that only one of the terms is supposed to be there. And so even if we see it in duplicate, we'll kind of skip over it while our brain is pronouncing this, because it seems like our job is to try to communicate with ourselves as quickly as possible so we can keep registering stimuli from other places. So when we say verbal communication, we're talking about something's ability to be pronounced based on the phonetic structure of symbolic language. This means if you see a picture of a sandwich and you see the word sandwich, you're processing the word sandwich, sandwich, differently than seeing that photographic depiction. That when you look at that with your brain, when you look at this and your eyes transfer that content over to your brain. So physiologically, something has come in front of your lens. You have seen that it's a picture of a sandwich, and then it goes to your psychological realm for processing in your brain. And you start with that perception process that we discussed. You select out that picture of the sandwich, you organize it into that's a sandwich, and then you interpret that a sandwich is there, or this is a menu, so it's for sale, or someone has drawn your face onto a sandwich, whatever it is. But so you start to make sense of what this thing is and what's required next. Why is this thing here and what happens? When you're going through just the symbols of the language, you essentially have really an extra step because you have to go through all of those individuated sounds and letters, combine them into a word. Then you may spur a visual depiction of it that only exists in your head but isn't really there in that format. And then you may go through the process of what that thing means to you. All right, so we have a different sort of peripheral level of understanding whether something is flat verbal with just words or it contains a visual depiction. It gets processed a little bit differently. And then we consider something that is a nonverbal messaging system where it is not required in order for social meaning to be exchanged about this thing, for there to be a word or necessarily a pictorial depiction. So nonverbal, it doesn't even mean that there isn't verbal communication. It just means that there doesn't have to be. So we've belabored all since the beginning of our time together the concept of this gosh darn wave. When you put your hand back and forth, I could say, good morning, how's everyone doing with this? And even if I say good morning, the good morning is going to stay in the realm of something that's verbal and vocalized. And this will forever remain nonverbal, even if I've explained it with my language and my mouth at the same time. So this still has so many things that it can mean. It can mean I'm over here, don't do that, I'm trying to get your attention, hello, or goodbye. There are too many things that this can mean to say that it is strictly in the realm of verbality and it cannot be vocalized. Because how would you say this? You could say, oh, well, that's hello. But remember, it could be goodbye. So you would say, hello, goodbye, I'm over here. Okay, and then the person would have to sort this out. Or you could even swish it. Huh? That's the sound that it makes in my head. Okay, it makes and that's not going to get us anywhere anyways. So we are okay as human animals in the uncertain dimension, meaning that we're, and that sounds creepy, it's not the Twilight Zone. But what we're saying is that we know that this doesn't have a right and true symbolic sound that goes with it, but we can sort of replace it with something else. Think about how our intuition kicks in nonverbal communication when someone says, well, she was looking at me a certain way. Like what? I mean, like, like just not looking at me a certain way. What is that certain way? Well, I mean, I'm just saying, I thought we were friendly. And then when I said good morning to her, she said good morning. Well, she did speak back. She said good morning, right? She did. She said good morning. But then she looked at me like, good morning. Like if she was doing it like a robot, like we had no personal connection. What it was is that she looked at me like we'd never met before. Now, how would you possibly communicate that in a vocalized way? Would you even do that on purpose? Could you look at someone on purpose like you had never ever seen them? Brand new for the first time. Good morning. Good morning. How are you today? And you start getting, you're like, oh wow, so you don't remember I've been sitting in your class for 3 weeks. How are you? Hey you. I'm so happy to see you here today. And so it's hard to communicate even in language that sentiment is because we have literally thousands, if not millions, of combinations of micro expressions, of body positionalities, of connections and negotiations. So this means that nonverbal communication is really the much more rich language. It has so many more sort of nuances in it than things that are hard, centered, and just symbolic or linguistic communication. So think about nonverbal communication as not something that we use because we cannot communicate verbally or vocally. So I'm not just putting my hand this way because you're so far away from me that you wouldn't be able to hear my voice, but rather that it gives me another dimension. It shows that I'm being friendly, or I'm doing a Forrest Gump impression, or it's giving you some sort of information in addition to what I can say vocally. So it's doing something that my voice cannot. Alrighty, think about this way. Let me ask you about your home culture really quickly and what you know about in your life. Do you and your people, when I say your people, we think about culture on like 3 levels. And if you take some more of my classes, and I hope that you do, all right, and those of us who are especially going to go to U of H, go Cougs, can holler at me for my African American sociolinguistics classes or some of the 3,000 level speech communication classes as well. And we understand that we have an analysis tool set that is on the micro level, the meso level, and the macro level. I made it Marco. That's cute. Whoever Marco is getting a shout out this morning. Okay, so when we have analyses from the micro level, the meso level, and the macro level, they're put together in a way that we should be able to understand them pretty easy. You've heard the term microaggression before, likely. And when we say microaggression, we're not mentioning that this is an aggression that's happened to you that's a small thing. But when we say micro in this essence, we're mentioning that it is an interpersonal, usually a dyad. Remember, we learned that a dyad, DYAD, is the basic unit of interpersonal communication that just includes two people. So if something happens to us on the micro level, then that means that whatever this phenomena is only taking you and this other person, or maybe you and just your own family if we expand it into a small group. Let's say that there is a piece of nonverbal communication that you all make fun of one another with, that as you're saying goodbye, let's say like my kids and I say goodbye to each other from far away, and then we'll do the I love you sign. Okay, so then we'll put forth the I love you sign. That's something on the micro level. That's not something that society says, all right, every mother to their daughter or to their father has to make the sign when they leave out. So that's just something quirky that your family does with itself. Then on the meso level, the term meso indicates the concept of something being medium, or that is from an outgrowth of society or socialization that not just one person or one set of two people or one family would know, but let's say one region or one community or one proportion of people that are in this generation. So on a meso level, it would be really the concept of, people in this one particular culture, let's say Houston, are supposed to speak to each other or greet each other hello and goodbye. So we're not from a place, like I'm from a place where people do not say hello to one another. I don't know if you are from a place or anyone knows somewhere where you keep your head down, you make sure your hand's on your purse, and if you know someone, then maybe you'll give them the eyebrow and say what's up on the street, but you're definitely not going to look at a complete stranger on the sidewalk and be like, good morning, how are you? And they'll be like, you just got robbed. That's what happens. Okay, so you're broke now. I know what your name is. Your name is filing a police report because I'm running away. So think about if your whole culture, so all of Houston is okay with everyone saying hello when you enter and goodbye when you exit. So that would be a meso level interaction of greeting behavior. And then on the macro level, we have a function in our society that is for greeting or for hello and goodbye. So it's built into the culture. So think about if you were to attend an orientation or a business meeting, and it will even have on the agenda 5 minutes for welcome and introductions. So it lets you know that baked into that larger society that we recognize there is a reason or a function for us to actually greet each other as humans. So there's this big macro level. We definitely want to have a space for greeting behavior. Then we have the greeting behavior patterns on the meso level of this, greater regional community. And on the micro level, how you and your family say hello to each other and what happens. And it's kind of difficult to know all of those levels, especially if you're in a new place or with a new group of people and you have your family's rules of how you operationalize these things. You have, what this bigger community that surrounds your family believes, and then what all of society says you're supposed to do or how this thing is supposed to happen. I asked if there's anybody like me out there or has a difference of the way that we communicate. Have you ever been told that you have been loved without someone saying, I love you? And please keep it PG-13 for us. It's early in the morning. But I'm saying such as you have woken up and you have smelled breakfast cooking and you're like, there's love in my life. Somebody loves me. Well, if that breakfast is for you, of course. Or if someone is sorry to you and they don't really know what to say, or it's happened to you in opposite. Like sometimes I have a friend that's upset and I won't know like what's wrong or what to do. And I'm like, just get in, please. Can I just hug you? Because I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing right now. So think about how you can show love or care or the concept of compassion without ever saying those words, because some cultures of people on the micro level don't say I love you or, show that level of intimacy every single time that you communicate, but there's something that's performed, like I got your coffee started for you, or I started your car when it was cold. You all have heard of love languages before, and we'll get to those in the semester too, where some people present acts of service, some people give presents, some people do other stuff, and a lot of that level of communication. So a lot of the things that exist for us on the micro level are really non-verbally based. Okay, so things that are not necessarily said, but are produced. So I'm going to check on you. Think about being in a busy place and looking for that person to make sure they're okay, and they're already looking at you to make sure you're okay. And you're like, we're a team, is what we are. Okay, that's what it is that I didn't have to call you or say anything. I already knew that you were looking for me while I was looking for you. Oh, I got bars too. All right, so when we're thinking about nonverbal communication, a whole level just about is put forth just in stuff that we do with our hands and our bodies and the cooking and breakfast and all that good stuff. And so we want to let it be known that people can ascribe or project onto us a level of understanding, even if we're not trying to communicate that thing. So I have a student that was in the front row of class, two separate classes. Okay, so the first, we got this taken care of the first semester that we had with her. But she would sit in the very front row and right in front of my lectern, and everything that I said, she would look at me like a suspicious squirrel. I would say there are 3 levels that we study in analysis: micro, meso, and macro, and she would look this way. And I would say, so has anybody ever experienced greeting behavior? And she's like, I think so. Like, she always kind of looked like she had a secret, or like she didn't quite believe what I was saying. And so I would do the discount double check. Like, I'd be like, does anyone have any questions or comments? Like, Rebecca, do you have any questions or comments? Anyone have anything? Because it kind of looked like she either didn't connect with the content, or she had a question, but she didn't want to ask it, or, like I didn't know what was going on. And so one day we actually had a fire drill at the school, and we were walking outside of Spring Branch, and I was like, hey, don't want to be in your business, but I'm so excited that you sit on the front row and that you're paying good attention, but I always want to nudge you because it feels like you kind of have a question, because you're looking at me in a way, and I promise I'm telling you all of the truth about everything that I know about this. But if you have any concerns, any questions, please do ask me. And she answers me. She says, oh no, I had cataract surgery, and so it just kind of looks like this for a minute. I'm okay. I'm like, I was in your business and this is my fault. All right. But I was inferring, I was projecting onto her that she had wide open eyes and she kind of tilted her head a certain way, that she must want more certainty or she must need more information. So people are projecting that stuff on us all the time, just like we talked about last class, when maybe our arms are folded and people will think a certain thing about us, or if we're even standing in a certain part of the room, they'll be like, well, you look like you don't want to be bothered. It's like, I'm just using the charger. The charger's in the wall. I'm fine with being social, but I just got to, get this juice right quick. So think about how people are putting those things onto us, and the onto us that they're putting are things that we have learned in nonverbal communication, really just by the experience or seeing others. So we learned in last class. Any questions or comments or contributions about how you say I love you without saying those actual words non-verbally, or anything that you think about, even just pointing or looking at someone like, don't come over here. Okay, so having the face that looks like, don't do it. It's not, you don't want these problems. Don't do this thing. Questions, comments, or contributions at all? Alrighty, so in last class, I asked you to tell yourself some lies in the mirror, and we had a gang of a time putting our heads round and round over trying to tell lies with our mouth and trying to do something different with our heads. And we learned that we can compliment, repeat, regulate, substitute, and even deceive, that's the lie, with our nonverbal communication. So we can express one thing nonverbally and something different that's vocal or verbal. And we said that one of the caveats or conditions, a principle that is true about nonverbal communication throughout history, is that usually actions speak louder than words. Now, I want to make my own caveat or condition because I had a student that gave a really good question in a section about neurodiversity and the concept of more denotative interpretation outside of that connotation and that coded communication that we've been building on a profile. Now, when I say that most people engage in actions speak louder than words, we have to understand that not everyone is going to have that same perceptual lens, that someone will hear you say, you got to get out of here, you're making me sick, and actually pivot, leave the room, and get out because they're worried that they're making you ill. And if we're talking about nonverbal communication, a person can say, kind of smile at you and raise your hand, and that may be considered for that person who is reading that activity, that means that you're open to their conversation, they're going to come over, they're going to talk to you, whereas you're really just acknowledging that person's existence and saying hello. So think about how there is a little bit of discernment that is necessary even in vocalized or verbal communication. If you're in the hallway with someone that you don't know that well and you're going one direction and a person is going another, and you say, hey, how you doing? when you say, hey, how you doing, that person is maybe, according to your meso level sort of sociology, supposed to understand that, hey, how are you doing, even though it has an interrogative tone or it's phrased as a question. It's not really an invitation to stand there and talk to you for 3 minutes about, the nachos that this person ate last night and that they have to get their tires rotated and what they're doing on Saturday. But rather, even though the phraseology is how are you doing, is supposed to really just mean another version of a greeting or a hello in the situation. So that can happen even with expressed language that's idiomatic, such as how are you doing, even though it just really means hello. Then we know that nonverbal communication can do that same thing as well. So we have to be careful that the message that we are intending to send actually has the impact that we're looking for. So if we tell someone just with our hands, for instance, to scoot over, so if we're telling a person like get over here just a little bit, there's not a way that our little bits that we're thinking that this person should get over can be communicated correctly if we don't have really an interpersonal communication relationship, a backstory for that person to project or infer what it is that we're talking about. If we go like this to someone and push our hands to one direction, that they may go all the way to the end of the bench or all the way out of the door, or they may scoot over like 1% of a millimeter and think that that's enough. So we have to kind of negotiate those things into it. And so we want to follow it up with verbalization or vocalization and say about just a little bit more, just a little bit more. We want to mouth something to them in a certain way. We're also now wanting to transition into our types of nonverbal communication. And two of them we've already, or three of them really now, we've already considered. And on last class, we gave some information on how prefixes can help us to understand on many of these what they are. I'm giving you the super duper guns because for each of these, you want to make sure that you commit the titular elements to memory, meaning that you want to know what this nonverbal communication piece is called. And then, so it's definition. And then you want to also have really in your head just an example of what that would be. For example, let's say that we're in, I don't know, your final examination and you have a multiple choice question, as all of our quizzes and tests will be multiple choice, that says, which one of these is a demonstration of kinesics? And we learn here that kinesics, with that prefix K-I-N-E, talks about movement and bodily movement in particular. And when the prompt asks for you to select the response that contains an element of kinesics, and your choices are someone whispering in a movie theater, the color red that someone is wearing on their clothes, how the distance between Samantha and Cheryl in the movie theater, or Cheryl standing up and stretching to indicate that she's bored, then you will choose D, Samantha standing up and stretching to indicate that she's bored, because kinesics will require some sort of active bodily movement. Okay, so body language or body positionality. So your job is to know the definition of what this type of nonverbal communication is, and also really some information on how it can be performed and read. Questions or comments before we get into those types? Anyone have anything at all? All right, so I've already belabored the concept of kinesics, which is known in our vernacular as kind of like body language. So think about your professor's poor posture, someone that's walking around bent over like the Hunchback of Notre Dame, or think about someone that seems really cocksure and is standing up straight and very erect, or has a politician's thumb. Good morning, how's everyone doing? Great, fine, how are you? And that person's sitting up straight and it's supposed to be, exuding charisma and, that they have a force with their body language. Also think about the things that are inside of kinesics that are more specialized. And really the two that are below kinesics definitionally inside of our handout, oculesics and facial expressions, both belong to kinesics as well. So kinesics talks about bodily movement, and eyes are definitely part of your body, but they're so highly specialized that they carry their own characterization. When we're talking about kinesics, we can talk about you even elbow bumping someone in order to say hello now, or fist bumping them in the pandemic. We can talk about the concept of pointing. Did you grow up in a household that it was not okay to point at people? I grew up in that household and broke that rule almost instantly. As soon as I started teaching, I was like, okay, y'all move over. And I was like, oh, sorry. Okay. And so then I start pointing with my elbow, like, that's better. Okay, y'all over there. And then it started looking weird and I was doing a dance. I just made up like the concept of TikTok dancing, probably my second year of teaching. So when we're looking at kinesics, it's anything that you do. So legs, feet, any type of coding that someone can infer from you based on your body type or what your body is doing. So even think about the concept of how much space you're taking up with just your body. There are some people that try to make themselves smaller. All right, so we have the concept, as I've discussed before, of somebody tall that wants to make themselves appear shorter, or someone short that wants to elongate or make themselves look a little bit taller. But also, have you heard of the term man spreading, which is something that we don't deal with too much unless we're taking public transportation? The concept of people that live and present as male will stretch their knees very far apart when sitting in public transportation, according to our nonverbal communication scholar, Dr. Deborah Tannen, who did an ethnographic study of taking public transportation in 3 major cities and tried to get a measurable distance on how wide each person sat in this area. So how much space that they take up. And she finds that people that live as and present as women usually tuck in, knees together, sitting a certain way that's supposed to be culturally acceptable. And men will spread out, elbows on either side of whatever's going on, and have, this dimension of space, making a V in between their knees instead of trying to tuck in different places. So kinesics can talk about really the cadence and pattern of your walk. I don't know about y'all, but my partner, my husband, is a tall person, and at 6'3" and some change, or 6'4", I feel like I'm player 2 all the time. He's just like living his life and just walking, and I'm just like trying to catch up. Okay, I'm like, I'll be there in a second. Just slow down, okay? Like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm trying to get there. Like, I'm just running. And because his gait, G-A-I-T, just the distance between one foot and another and the pattern of walking, he has to actually adjust if we're going to walk together to walk smaller than he usually does. Or again, I'm just, Luigi trying to do it, trying to catch up to what it is that he's doing. So those types of things that are coded linguistically onto your body matter. Okay, so when we're talking about how you move, people that have differences of abilities for limbs are judged differently than people that are supposed to have full facet of range of motion. In 2008, which probably seems like in the day of the dinosaurs to our classmates on the call today, we had 2 senators that were running for the presidency of the United States, Barack Obama and John McCain. And John McCain was all types of a war hero and was a prisoner of war, if you can be a hero at destruction or whatever. It's your opinion. But so that was his label, okay, is that he was a war hero and he had been injured on the battlefield and had, been a prisoner in that sort of situation. And unfortunately, he was not able to move his arms above, or his hands, above shoulder level, and he couldn't move his elbows outside of his waist. So he would hold on to a microphone and would have to kind of hold it like in this dimension. He wasn't going to be able to like post up and, make sure he's blocking a shot or do any of those things. And he wasn't able to be very kinetic in hugging people out in the world past, just this area. So he could go in for like the side pat hug, but not so much like the over or let me put my arm around you. He wasn't able to do that because of an injury to his shoulders and to his arms. Whereas Barack Obama was much younger, very much more kinetic, would go around grabbing babies, throwing them into the air, spinning basketballs on his finger, reaching out to people and hugging them, fixing his wife's hair in public, like doing all sorts of things, even purposefully, is what is being postured to show that he was virile and young and he could move things around. And even though John McCain's shoulders and arms were injured for what was supposed to be, according to, sort of American logic, a noble experience, he was still seen, kind of old and elderly and differently abled in a way that would code him more negatively to the people that voted. So think about something that you cannot control whatsoever. If you're injured and you cannot move your arm this way, or if you're born with a difference of ability that has a gait, let's say with a limp, or that has your fingers moving around differently, or you're using your neck differently even, there's nothing that you're necessarily going to be able to do to prevent people that are bigoted or have a stigma against the way that we operationalize our bodies or move them. So we want to kind of create a cadre of people that is a lot easier on that, that is good to people in it. So if you see someone that is differently able, that we don't think, oh, poor this person, I'm going to pity them because they have mobility issues, or Isn't that brave for you to come out in the world being the ogre that you are? Like, fall back. We want to make sure that we're okay, that we know that lots of us have different abilities kinetically, and we always just want to ask. So think about people that have mobility issues, that have devices that connect them to their ability to be autonomous in movement, such as someone that uses a wheelchair or uses a cane or some sort of assistive device. We definitely don't want to touch those things or make any assumptions on their extendability for your use, but instead you just ask a person, say, hey, is it okay if I help you with this door? May I do this? Do you need anything? Can I lift this up? So we definitely want to ask those things, because if we're reading someone nonverbally and we say, oh, that's the guy in the wheelchair, we just kind of want to think about it differently and say that's a person who uses a wheelchair, who uses this device, and that maybe this person can operationalize their body differently in different spaces, and we don't want to make assumptions about their abilities. We just want to ask if they need some help. Do you have any questions or comments about the generic form of kinesics before we move into oculesics and facial expressions? Anyone have anything at all? All right, so do you know that, have you had that professor before that doesn't use hands at all? That just kind of sits there with you this way? And have you had that professor that's like essentially doing like a comedy or a magic routine that's always in here with the, I'm doing all of these things? I always like professors to do like R&B hand moves from, videos. Like I'm just constantly in a BTS video, just doing all of these movements. All right, so kinesics, you're supposed to like look like you're connected to whatever this thing is, or that you're blinking or you're making sense, but not so much that your movements are a distraction to your audience or to the person that you're talking to. And we always want to be careful with our kinesics and turning it into haptics, just to jump down really quickly, and we'll get there in a second. But haptics talks about the study of touch communication. And some people that are very kinetic and move things around and do stuff with their hands will end up touching someone without their express permission, or touching things that belong to people. So we want to make sure that it stays in your kind of bubble, which we'll learn about, your realm, and that we don't extend it to touching anyone, especially if we don't have permission or relationship to do so. So our two types of kinesics that we have that are listed here as well are oculesics and facial expressions. With that, OCU not meaning occult, like a student has emailed me already. So there's not any witchcraft necessarily that's going on in here, unless you are casting spells or aspersions with your eyes, and that's your business. Don't tell me, please. But this OCU prefix means to us, they were talking about eyes, just like we will see OPT mean the same thing as eyes. I think we have one that was doing spells with eyes. Maybe that's why they're going. Okay, not my business again. So oculesics talks about the way that we move our eyes. And I don't know about y'all, but one of the first levels of resistance, of disrespect that I ever gave my parents was the silent eye roll, where I was well away from them and there was no way they could see it. Okay, so I was very upset about whatever it is, and I'd go in my room and be like, I just won right there. Okay, so I just rolled my eyes, and that's how I felt about it. So think about knowing what your face looks like. And it sounds kind of crazy pants crazy, but it can be true. Like, I have to get my life together because I know that I have eye habits of, when I'm really trying to explain something that's making sense to me, I'll close my eyes. Like, I'll try to picture it. So every lecture that I have, all sorts of things that I do, I'm like dropping all types of knowledge, and I have my eyes completely and totally closed because it is important. I'm feeling I'm getting into it. So my eyes will close, or I'll open them like really, really big. Just naturally just was born with a large space in between the lids. And so that's kind of my variance between I can't see you at all and you definitely can't see me, and here I am like on clown behavior. So you should know what your own eyes look like. Okay, you should know if you're a heavy blinker. Think about people who are out here seeing for free, meaning they don't have glasses, they don't have contact lenses, they're just out here just raw seeing the whole world, and how that's great. But also think about how those assistive devices, such as glasses and contacts, can change the way that we communicate via eye movements to people. Think also about the rest of the accoutrement that we put on it. Okay, so my oldest daughter has lashes that are like ridiculous, and they're already ridiculous. Like, she was born with the double lash syndrome. That's kind of like Liz Taylor, where she has 2 rows of lashes. So they're already like out here just doing their thing. And then just because the time they were in and the, potential beauty that she wants to be, she's got like these snuffleupagus level, like wavy eyelashes that go different places. And what that says to people. So does that say, I'm interested in what you're talking about? Does it say I'm more interested in what my eyelashes are looking Like, can I make eye contact with you? Can I like get through the eyelashes to see what your eyes are doing? Or even think about the concept of people having colored contacts, and if this is expressing something to someone. So is it saying that you're, performing for the Eurocentric gaze? Are you saying that you just like this color and it's cool? Or you saying, I'm just trying to see, I'm just trying to see this thing and do this. So we're talking about eye movement in general. We're talking about things such as indications of discomfort or of pleasure with your eyes. So if, let's say, you can't hear someone correctly, it sounds very silly, but it's true. If we can't hear, lots of times we'll squint. Because you're not going to see a lot of people say, like, I can't hear you, or, I'm having trouble, and we'll point to our ear. But instead, when someone's talking, we'll say, and the person will be like, oh, can you hear? Yeah, I'm just having a little trouble hearing. So we'll squint on it just a little bit. Or if we don't believe something is happening. I was at a basketball game last night, something happened, and my eyes went like this big. I was like, oh, we're doing it, it's happening. Goodness. So when we're trying to indicate a message to someone else, or we're telling someone, I don't know about y'all, but I struggle every time someone tells me don't look at this thing. It feels like it's physically hurting me not to look at it. It's like, don't look. And I'm like, don't look. Okay, I did it. I looked. I'm sorry. I gave up. I couldn't do it right now. All right. So when we're talking about eye movements, just what Tony was mentioning earlier, in some cultures, we show deference by not looking at someone directly in the eye. We show displeasure, or we show a force of power in not looking at someone or connecting with them. Like maybe you've heard someone say that before, like, don't look at me right now, okay? Or don't talk to me, or I'm not talking to you. When I'm talking to you, I'll look at you, but I'm not looking at you, so you know that I'm not talking to you. Like, oh, okay, it's a really big deal. So our eyes are pretty important. And just like we've been talking about, you can really put an asterisk next to everything that we talk about in nonverbal communication, that you can guess by now the professor is really serious on making sure that we make considerations for people that have different operatalizations. So different ways to operate. These are mechanized nonverbal communication based on our abilities and differences thereof. And so not everyone is going to have the same way to use their eyes. I had a student that is a motivational speaker now that came into this class first. So came into Intro to Speech Communication and then took public speaking, and was our first majors once we had our associate's degree available in speech communication, and is now transferred over. He's already out of his 4-year institution. And he was really nervous on the first day of speeches because he has a condition called strabismus, which we refer to in the vernacular in my community as kind of a cock eye. Like, I don't know if you've heard that term before, where someone has a muscular structure on an eye that is weak, that positions it in one place where the other eye can be looking or focusing on another dimension or direction. So this person is talking to you, looking at you, and the eye that is not in that affectation is looking right at you, and the other eye is kind of going somewhere else and looking like off to the periphery. So he comes in on the first day of class and he was like, hi, my eyes are doing their own thing. It gets even worse when I'm tired. I have been doing exercises and going to therapy for my whole life, but it's going to look kind of weird. Should I just wear sunglasses every time that I give a speech? And I'm like, well, let me ask, are you one of the X-Men? I mean, so are you going to like laser us or burn us? If not, then that's a part of your constitution and a part of your reality. And if it doesn't make you uncomfortable or embarrassed, then let's address it with a class. Tell them which eye to focus on if it makes you feel more comfortable, that they're not trying to follow where your other eye is going. And let's get it done. Okay, let's make sure that you feel comfortable and confident, and that your audience is informed on how to best participate in conversation with you. So when we're talking about eye movement, even if we have like a flutter, like some people have the concept of their lids kind of closing or fluttering a lot, and people will say, is there wind getting in your face? Or, oh no, that's just, I'm on super blink. Okay, if you're on super blink, cool. You should know that about you. You should be self-aware. And if you feel more comfortable letting people know that, then that may make you a little more comfortable in communication. And so I'll say a lot when I'm reading or listening to a student concern. I will say, hey, I'm totally listening, but I'm going to be reading your face and like looking at you and looking at all the cool stuff that you've got going on in your face. So I'm really just going to just keep looking down, taking my notes, and I promise I'm listening to you. Just because I'm not looking at you right in the eye doesn't mean that I'm listening. I'm going to be able to tell you back everything you said word for word, but I'm not going to be able to concentrate because, I mean, look at you, just a masterpiece, okay? So I'm going to have to not focus directly on you. When we get to facial expressions, We talk about stuff such as lip curling or sticking our tongues out. We're talking about if we already have big cheeks and they come up in kind of a smile, or we look like we're frowning. I'm going to take this shared screen off for a second. And if you are able to show me your face on the camera, I would love for us to do this exercise really quickly. I just want you to give me your default base level face. All right, so how do you wake up in the morning? What does your face look like? So you're walking down the street. What's your face look like? This is my face when I'm walking down the street. All right, Vier's got a face. That's cool to know. Okay, let's see. We've been seeing that. Jacob, that's your default face right there. Okay, we got it. That's it. Now that I've seen your default face, Sarah's got a default face, and I want you to look at you in the camera. Okay, look at what your face looks like just on base. Vera's like, I can't do it. I'm already smiling. All right, so Hope's got a default face, and some of y'all are telling the truth with not having a face on the camera. You're like, nope, you can't see me. I'm invisible. I'm trying to blend into society. I'm not doing this thing. So when we look at our default face, what is it communicating to people? And we know that it can't communicate the same thing to all of the people all the time. I got my whole entire life, fix your face, what's wrong? In a place that you're taught not to walk down the street just smiling and laughing. Do y'all know that people walk down the hallway smiling? Like, good morning. Good morning. Can you turn it down a little bit? I haven't had my coffee yet. Like, you're already seeing like you're crunk about this day and I'm not. They're talking, hi, how's it going? It's like your face is so open. Or think about your facial expression. Another thing, and I'm just giving y'all my whole life. Besides fixing my face, like in general, I had a micro reaction to bad news that would manifest as pleasure or a smile. So in my surprise face, someone would say something such as, Dorothy passed away. And I would say, really? And they'd be like, yeah, are you happy? Close that up. Because you're supposed to say, when Dorothy passed away, oh, really? I'm sorry, that's awful. And you're supposed to somber and solemn and make it small. And I would kind of open up. She passed away. Oh, wow, I didn't even know she was sick. Like, oh, wow, you didn't win the lottery. Close your face up. That looks crazy. Okay, stop doing that thing. So think about your facial expressions. What if, now that I have your face on camera, okay, so we lost a couple, okay, but we got some MVPs up here. So I'm the supervisor, and I tell you, you are in charge of the entire office for the whole weekend. And because you're in charge, you'll be using the boss's desk and the boss's company car. And also, it won't matter exactly what time you get here. You're going to get double time pay. What does your face look like? Okay, so if you are hearing all this good news, you're like, respectfully, I'm going to be able to handle that. So your first like inclination might to be like, Sarah, like, did you say company car? And I could be here. Does this include the espresso machine? I can use the espresso machine. So I'm just like all the way up to 11, but I have to put another expression on top of that because I'm the boss today. So I'm going to adopt that there is no pleasure in this whatsoever. My eyebrow is going to come together. I'm going to make a slit. And I'm even going to try to masculinize my sort of boss behavior. So think about people that try to adopt the characterization facially of others to try to look like they're more happy or more sad. That gets to our deception that we talked about, to telling lies. But we should know what our default face looks like. Like, my mouth is going to be turned down. I'll be walking around just looking like whatever. What's wrong? Nothing. What's wrong? Nothing. What's wrong? That you've asked me what's wrong 5 times. That's what's wrong. Okay, so now that's what's wrong. And so if somebody's sitting here, how are you doing? Oh, I'm fine, thank you. I had a student, and I'm looking at Ethan's default face now too. Okay, so if we're looking at, so we already lost it. So unless that's it, okay, that's the default face. And so everybody in my house wears glasses but me, and they feel a way about not having their glasses on. So they'll look at each other like, you look weird, you don't have your glasses on. Like, hey, or I don't want to show the world me without the glasses, or people react differently to this thing. All right, so think about when you're looking at your own default expression, or if somebody is smiling, what that says about them. I had a student that was sitting in the back of the classroom, and she was a grinner, for sure. Like, we come to class, good morning, how's everyone doing? I was like, it's cool. She's like, yeah, I work in a tooth whitening business. I'm like, you sure do? I know you do. Okay, because you're advertising every day. She's like, yeah. Any questions or comments? Yeah, hi. Is the test gonna be like fun? Nope. Okay, it's probably not gonna be fun, but it's gonna be helpful. So one day she comes to class. All right, I'm doing this on her. So one day she comes to class, and I don't see her first. I just hear her first. All right, and she says, hey, how you doing? And I'm like, cool, how are you doing? She's like, I'm fine, how are you? I was like, oh, what's the matter? Nothing's the matter. Does someone have a knife in your bag? I kind of have like a headache. And she was still trying to do it. She was trying to perform the concept of a smile with like, something orangutan banging up in her head, like going like totally bonkers. And you're still trying to play it, like you're still trying to be performative in the way you do this. But so think about your teachers that you've had, like your elementary school teachers that had that bright kind of smile in your voice and wanted to have like a facial expression to match that. Now, Whataburger got a lot of slander. We got that. But is everybody still on the same page that Chick-fil-A is elite? Or is it a point of controversy at this moment? Does everybody understand that Chick-fil-A is elite, or do we need some tutorials? Okay, how do y'all feel about Chick-fil-A? Is it all right? Unmute yourself, put it in the chat. Is Chick-fil-A okay, or is it like on a wire now? What's happening? People like Chick-fil-A for various reasons. Maybe the peanut oil, maybe waffle fries, I don't know. But have you ever heard the people in the Chick-fil-A tell you that it's their pleasure to serve you? It's a great day at Chick-fil-A. May I help you, please? Do you think those people are always smiling when they're saying that? Like, do you have to smile to do it? Has anyone ever had a job where you're supposed to communicate happiness through your voice? So you're actually supposed to perform your voice in a way that's supposed to indicate to the user that you are smiling or happy to be there. Are you able to tell? Okay, Sarah, tell us about it. Brianna. Okay, Brianna. First of all, does that employee discount still work? If it's used to, okay. And then Sarah, Brianna, tell us, please. So how did you make it? Because I feel like Sarah's got a story. How did you make it where you made your voice sound a certain way by posturing your face a certain way?
I try to always stay positive. Um, Even though people were customers were making my life hard, I try to always stay positive though. And even though I was mad and all that, um, yeah, I try to I still like try to be positive. Yeah, so they can feel like that even though they're having a hard time, like I'm still gonna try to give them a good time
Oh,
that I
Sarah.
can.
Sarah's out here an angel. So you're actually being positive. Like we're talking about performing something anyways. And Sarah's like, no, I'm actually positive. Okay, I'm just praying for them at this point and trying to give them a good experience. So you actually had to be positive in order to
Mhm.
perform positivity. Is that what you're mentioning?
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Brianna, did we have a contrast when you had to do it every day, all day on the dot? Are you able to tell us, Brianna, did you have to be positive, or did you choose, like Sarah, to be positive, or did you just like fake it with your voice?
I mean, I guess I was always trying to be positive, but whenever I was hungry, that's whenever when I couldn't get my break, then that's when it would cut off. But other than that, I just really tried to be positive for like mainly the customers because I mean they're paying for a reason, they're going there for a reason. So
Got it. Yeah, Brianna, you're better because Sarah's best. You're better because I would have like totally grabbed a nugget and tried to feel better. I would have been fired like on day three because the smell itself, I would have just ate all of the stuff. I can be hungry. That has got to be like some sort of metaphor. Being hungry in the Chick-fil-A. I'm gonna have to take a break. I'm going to the bathroom. I'm gonna have to figure it out. But think about the opposite too. Like, have y'all ever had to say you're sorry to a customer? Okay, Emily's totally obsessed. Okay, so when you had to say you're sorry and you weren't really sorry, I'm sorry. Let me put you on a brief hold. I'm sorry that was your experience. I'm sorry. Are you really sorry? You're not really sorry. You're sorry that they're bothering you with the mess, right? But you have to structure your voice in a way. And sometimes we have to perform that whole face even to get the voice that does this thing. And so y'all are better. Y'all are doing an entire long cut of actually being positive. I never considered that you could just be positive. I'm just upset that I'm here at this place. All right, so when we talk about facial expressions, think about masking and what we're going through now. So if you can't see the ribbon of someone's face, if you can't see this at all, and we're doing all this work with our eyes, I'm still the idiot that's smiling in my mask at people when I'm walking past them. Okay, I'm like, and you can only see this part of it. So I'm on timer. I'm like kind of smizing. Okay, so I'm trying to smile with my eyes to show that we're doing okay, or other things that we do with our body. We are doing a study right now. I'm part of a study that is trying to demonstrate or has a hypothesis that people are doing greetings and moving things differently around with their hands that they would not have before because people can't see their mask or their muzzle can't see. their faces. So now we've converted it over where we would have just smiled at someone. We're actually using our fingers and we're waving, or we're doing different stuff. We also want to think about what people are used to doing or accustomed to doing, that situations such as the pandemic have changed for us as far as nonverbal communication for facial expressions or our use of our hands around our face. So some people are like kind of, bang touchers, tuck your bang and tuck your bang and tuck your bang, or take your glasses on or off. And if you don't have like the fog spray with your glasses, then you definitely don't want to mess up the seal that you have to it. So you can't do that anymore. You can't bite your fingernails the same way that you would if you didn't have the mask on. Like there's a whole bunch of other stuff. And think about the poor backs of people's ears. Okay, so I've got some glasses going on and I've got the mask, and don't let me have one of my door knocker earrings. And those ears are just like stressed. Okay, so we have these things going on and they're communicating discomfort to people as well. Questions or comments about kinesics, including oculesics, which is eye movement, facial expressions, or anything to contribute to those topics? Anyone have anything at all? All right, have y'all ever seen a baby actually upset and stick their lip out in displeasure or discomfort? And it's like the cutest thing in the history of the world when that lip starts to quiver and you're like, oh my gosh, you're actually doing it. It's happening. Okay, and then as an adult, you're like, grow up, will you? I know you're not pouting in the Target because the dollar aisle is a mess. You're the one who made it a mess. Alrighty, so next we move on to haptics, which incorporates a level of kinesics as well. And haptics doesn't have a right and true prefix, but we can think of haptics in hands because we're talking about what we call tactile communication, or the study of touch. So we can have things such as greeting behavior, so we're fist bumping or shaking hands, as we mentioned, but also think about professional touches. And in your textbook in chapter 5, there's a chart for you in there that talks about levels of consent and, types of touches and their escalation. So think about things such as a physician or a nurse practitioner, or someone that, and I'm writing that down because we want to come back to that in another chapter. All right, so think about someone that you have given a level of consent in being examined in a way when you come into this position, or someone that's threading your eyebrows or waxing you or doing something that's different. So just your presence there has said, I know that I'm signing up with my agreement terms in order to be touched. At the same time, we still need to make some sort of boundaries or parameters around what types of touches are appropriate, or which types of touches that we can deal with. So when we're talking about touch, think about something such as a greeting behavior that is cultural. Alrighty, so when we're talking about cultural greeting behaviors in Eurocentric westernized cultures, our usual greeting for people that are not known to us or that we're not particularly intimate with. And here when we talk about intimacy, even though intimacy has a connotation of romance, it is not true in communication. So when we talk about intimacy and communication, we're just talking about the degree of knowing between two people. So your family are some of your most intimate partners. They know, what you're allergic to and what your birthday is and all that stuff. And so if you don't have a high degree of intimacy with these people, then likely we're going to have just a handshake to say hello, or just, a dab or a fist bump or something. And that in other cultures and co-cultures, as we've learned, that reside in the United States as well, we have a difference of greeting behavior that's induced by touches. Is there anyone like me that's from a family where your job is to kiss every single person in that room when you enter it? Anybody come from a kissy family? All right, and that can, he's like, no, I do not. Okay, so in my culture, the person who enters the space is the one who's responsible for, Emily, what's happening? Do we mean we kiss like the French, as if we do like kind of the air peck on each side of the cheek? Because there's also, unless you're being cheeky and trolling your professor this morning, there's also the titular French kiss that is a very highly romantic kiss that involves
Yeah, we kiss
like
on
that's what
the we kind of do like I will show you. I have to start the video because I
do
look
not show. No, I'm messing with you. All right, but no, Emily. So I get it. So that's why I described. We're doing like the sides, right?
Yeah, we do it like
So we
on
kiss
that
like
side,
the
but
French.
you have to do both.
Got it. So we kiss like the
listen
French,
first and
not we
Haley.
French kiss. Got it. And that's the spirit of colonization, baby. That's where we are. Okay, so France's relationship to Vietnam has influenced lots and lots of things. And so it makes sense. So we have sort of the air kiss on each side. We have Arab kisses. We have the concept of just one side or even a double on both. But in my culture, you just really need cheek up against the cheek. You don't actually have to kiss the person necessarily, but you can. But you are definitely supposed to approach every person that's your family member or say what's up in that way. Definitely a hug goodbye, definitely a kiss goodbye. And if you're not from one of those cultures, then it's going to look really weird that all these people are kind of like all over each other at this space. So my husband is from here. I mean, and I'm from here, not from Houston, but I mean, he's from the United States, and his family is a wave to each other family. All right, so his brother, his parents, hi, how you doing? Good morning. Like they wave to each other, hello, good morning, and they wave to leave out. And so I'm kind of looking like an alien, like you're not going to kiss your mom goodbye. And he's like, no. I'm like, oh, well, if she dies while we're at school, like what are we gonna do then? Like you, and so it looks weird to me, and it looks totally weird to him. The opposite. All right, so it looks weird. And so the first time that I brought him to my family's home, like my grandma's house, like in California, and brought him home to the family. I go into the kitchen and I'm saying what's up to him. It's he and his brother. He's got one brother. So he and my brother-in-law are in there, and they're both looking at me totally crazy. I'm like, what's going on? And my husband's like, that man kissed me. And I was like, what? It's like that man over there kissed me. And I was like, Uncle Earl? I was like, yeah. I was like, yeah. You're his nephew now. You're his nephew. He was like, but he came over and hugged me and kissed me right on my forehead. And I was like, yeah. He's like, so am I supposed to like kiss back or whatever? I'm like, it's an elder, so that person's likely going to initiate whatever type of greeting that is, towards you. And you're going to follow along with it if you're comfortable. If you're not comfortable, you do not have to give consent. You don't have to let anybody kiss you that you don't want to kiss you or hug you. You don't have to do that. And so then my brother-in-law comes in, and the experience is entirely opposite. He comes in, he's got lipstick like all over the gang, and he's like, hey. And he's like, what's up? He's like, you're cousins though. I was like, what's up? He's like, we're gonna date. It's like I'm going through all the whole list of them. All your cousins are feeling me. They're all feeling me. They're not feeling you. They think that you're their cousin too because you're now related to us, and they're just greeting you and saying hello. Nah, that hug was kind of tight. I'm like, she's married. She's got 4 kids. I think she just wants you to get her an iced tea. Like I would just probably do that if I were you. So if we're talking about greeting behavior and touching, what are y'all going to do with your kids? And I know we have one student that is young in this class. Okay, so Emily Jr. Is a kid that's here. So you have to tell us about. So Emily, if you don't mind, is that your son?
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
so Emily's got a son, and y'all tell us if you have kids or you have access to kids in your family that you can influence. And one of the last things that we're going to discuss today is what you're going to ask them to do as far as haptics and greeting. So if this is your real kid that you have, or a brother or sister that you have, or your future imaginary kids. When you were little, were you made to hug family members that you didn't want to hug, or were you made to kiss them or to greet them? And are you going to pass that on? Are you going to make your kids do that same? Ethan's like a hard no on it. Is not doing this thing. Or even in some cultures where we prostrate ourselves to elders, that we have to bend a certain way, or that we have to greet them like a formal, like this handshake, or touch their knees, or do something differently. Are you going to pass that on culturally to the little people in your life? Or are you going to kind of stop that there and say, you don't have to hug anybody you don't want to, you don't have to kiss or touch anyone? What do y'all think?
I would say it's a mix because we Asian, and usually Asian culture, they really respect their elderlies. And whenever, like, even me, when I see my grandma, I have to like, hi grandma, like you have to bow your head a certain way, and when you gift like things to them, you have to hand them with both hands. So those I'm gonna teach my kids both. But then I married to a uh, American family, which is my husband is not Asian. And also, when I go to his home, everybody's like hugging and kissing and stuff like that. So it's a mix of both. But I always tell my son that whenever you see grandma or you see grandpa, you still have to, kind of bow your head before you come hug them. So it's a mix of both. And giving them, like when you're trying to hand them something, do it with both hands.
Uh,
So yeah, I grown up with a really strict background. My parents was very, very traditional. So I learned from them, and I mean, I will pass on, um, but I mean, you can't uh, force kids to hug anyone or kiss anyone that they're not comfortable to. You can just say,
So for
hey,
your
go.
husband's side, you're not going to make your son like kiss your husband's side of the family or hug them because they're huggers and kissers. You're not going to make him do that.
I'm not gonna make him do that. If he comfortable doing that, then please go ahead. But I'll just, whenever we come to our husband's side, I'm just say, hey, go greet your grandma and grandpa, and it's up to him, like however he want to do it. I already teach him, but I mean, I can't force a kid to do things that he doesn't want to.
Got it. Except for eating vegetables, Emily. You got to eat those vegetables. All right. What else do y'all have? How do you feel about it? So Ethan's a hard no. So he says no. He's definitely not passing that on to anyone else. How'd that make you feel? Because bodily autonomy is a real thing. Are you able to unmute and talk to us about it? That you're definitely not going to pass it on, or anyone else that wants to talk to us about it right quick? I just start pinching people. So if you make me hug this person, I want to hug him. I'm just going to pinch him. That's all. Who's doing it? Alrighty. So as we think about that greeting behavior, and if no one wants to unmute or put in the chat, tell us how we should do it. Okay, or that we should do it. Emily's chat is forever good. That's going to be my all-time, and my therapist will hear about that today. Okay, I'm messing with you at all. So how we greet each other and say hello. I want you to kind of do some homework on that. Firstly, remember that you have a quiz today. I'm about to stop the recording, so if anybody has any questions, but please remember you have your quiz. It's on identity and self on today by 11:59 p.m. So please do take that. I'm stopping our recording, and as kind of your homework,